Welcome back to the Talking Archive. I'm Josh Jacobs. We're talking with radio personality and voiceover talent Jeff Serr. His website is jeffserr.com, JEFFSERR.com. And last time I mentioned a bunch of personalities at Oldies 93 CBS-FM, except for one. And Jeff, who was that one personality I forgot to mention?
You forgot one person talking about the Oldies station. Oldies 93, and that was Humble Harv, also worked there as well.
That's right, yeah. Humble
who
Harv.
Who I actually saw. I actually ran into him a year before he died. I ran into him on the streets of L.A., and he remembered me. So
that's great.
Yeah.
I remember he was, of course, first KBLA Super Music 15, and then KHJ hired him, and then went to jail, but then he came back at KISS AM and worked his way in many radio stations, including KRLA over the years. And I think he had like a DJing business the last 15 years of his life.
Yes. But I also heard him on some kind of satellite radio up in Northern California when I was driving through town. He was on a station, an oldie station, and I don't think it was a Transtar station, but it was a oldie station where he was maybe just doing voice tracks for it. I'm not quite sure, but
wow.
It was great to hear him back on the air. And we're talking the late 80s, I think.
That's right, yeah.
Early 90s, yeah.
Because he was at KERTH for a year, then Oldies 93 for a year, and then by the time he was let go was when the format change was about to go to the Arrow. How much insight or how much know-how did you have as they were changing to the Arrow? Because I remember he was a big top secret operation.
Changing to the format Arrow 93, I got the word 2 days before, and I was the production director of the station, and they came to me and said, "We got to talk to you about something, but you can't say anything to anybody." And I said, "Okay, well, let me know what's going on." And so they told me we're going to change to this classic rock format. We're going to call it Arrow 93. And the first thing I thought in my head was AERO 93, but it's actually ARROW 93, which I eventually found out. And they wanted me to put together all these sweepers and top of the hour IDs and things in just a short period of time for the new format, which I did. I think I put together maybe a dozen things before the format changed. And then eventually, built more as it came along. But yeah, that was something they waited to the last minute to even let me know, even though I had to put together as much as I could to kick off the format.
Well, I remember the top of the hour legal ID had a portion of Dark Side of the Moon in the background. And
I put that together with our program director at the time, Tommy Edwards.
That's right, yeah. And Tommy had come from Chicago, where he was at WLS with Larry Lujak. And, wow, I mean, in fact, he's, I think, back in the Windy City, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe that the last thing I heard is that he moved back to L.A., Southern California, after he retired.
Oh, wow.
But I could be wrong. It's funny, he and I have exchanged email, but the only thing we didn't include was where he's living now. So I should email him again and say, "Are you in L.A. or are you in Chicago?" So I kind of get the feeling he's moved back to Southern California because he really loved the weather here. So
yeah, I don't blame him.
Because we're talking about Tommy Edwards, who was Little Tommy on WLS in Chicago. And it wasn't until I, maybe a year after I started working with the guy that I went back to Illinois to visit some relatives. So I mentioned to them who I'm working with. They go, "You're working with Little Tommy?" So he was pretty well known.
Isn't it funny? He's called Little Tommy, and the guy's like 6'4" tall.
Yeah. Oh, he was nothing. There was nothing little about Tommy Edwards. He was a big, tall gentleman that some people feared, I think. So, but he was a great guy. He was one of the, I worked with him. He was my program director for the longest period of time of any radio station I worked for.
Wow. And he was there for about 10 and a half, almost 11 years, and was
right.
in through the format. After he had was let go from CBS due to cutbacks, I remember reading about that. I don't know if that's true or not. Sometimes you kind of read it through the grapevine, but he started programming some oldie stations through Clear Channel. One of them was Super 62 up in Portland, which Tom Murphy was mornings on. And then another one in Chicago that was also kind of like a super, whatever it was called, what the frequency was. But I thought that was really neat that Tommy had hired Tom for that that format. Yeah.
It's funny. It never happened when they were both in L.A. at the same time. But but yeah, that is actually true. That Tom Murphy did voice tracks that eventually ended up on a station that Tommy was a part of. So
small world.
Yeah, definitely. Tommy's a great guy. I've like I said, I've kept in touch with him. We've exchanged information about people who are no longer with us, that type of thing. And did you know that this and that happened with so and so and all that? But I haven't really seen him in person in recent years.
And you and Chris Taylor were together in production at Oldies 93. Now, after the format to Jack FM, how long after that did you leave to go to Solovine stations?
Believe it or not, I worked at Aero 93 until the day they pulled the plug on that format and switched to Jack FM. So I was the production director of Aero 93 up until the very last day of the format when they pulled the plug. And I think that was 2005.
Yeah.
Somewhere along that period of time. And at the time, we were in the same building as K-Rock. And I believe K-Earth had left the building at that time. But K-Earth was there for a little period of time. And they came up with this format just for, the Jack FM format was something they came up with to really, mainly because the Aero 93 format had run its course. The audience was kind of slipping, and they went with this format not knowing if it was going to work, but at least they would save a buck by firing all the disc jockeys and having no disc jockeys on the air. That was their thinking, that we're going to do this format. It's a real low-cost format. All you would need is maybe somebody to put the commercials on the air, to at least make sure the commercials ran and all that kind of thing. But it was the lowest cost format switch they could make, not knowing that right now Jack FM, and for the longest period of time now, has been in the top 10 ever since the day it went on the air.
And the only disc jockey currently on that station is Richard Blade with the Flashback Lunch that used to be on K-Rock.
Right. And Richard Blade is another neighbor of mine who lives about 6 blocks from me here. So got all these guys that I hardly see, but they're all neighbors of mine. Actually, I have run into Richard Blade in recent years, just here in the neighborhood. So
I met him at the Culture Club concert about 8 years ago, and really nice guy, and I took a picture with him, and it was a great concert. I mean, Culture Club still had it.
Oh, yeah.
Even their new album was great.
I've seen videos. I've never seen them live, but I've seen videos, and it's a show I'd love to see sometime because Boy George sounds as good as he did back in the 70s.
Oh, definitely.
80s. This would be the 80s we're talking. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Now, how long did you work for Saul Levine at the, I forget what it's called, the Mount Wilson Broadcasting?
Yeah, Mount Wilson Broadcasting was the company, and when I first got there, the FM station at 105.1 was still classical. However, they had just put country on the AM station that they owned, 1260 AM, which was KGIL. And I don't know if they used those call letters when I first got there. I can't remember now. But I was there 9 years, and I helped put the station on the air, the country format on the air, and then when they switched to the FM, they dropped the classical format on the FM, and I was a part of the kickoff of the, bringing country back to FM radio in Los Angeles. So I was there for all that.
Wow, that's great.
I was doing the imaging and the production for all that. So I was there 9 years, and that was a lot of fun because within a very short period of time, we had this pretty large audience, and it put us in the top 10 very quickly. And working the country format was something I'd never done before, but I always knew a lot about it. And I can say that I had just as much fun doing country radio as I did doing any other format in my past.
Let me ask you, you've been on the air over the years. Who was your favorite musician you ever got to meet?
Interesting question. Very good question. Probably Steve Perry of Journey. Because he was so warm and welcoming. And I actually got a chance to, run into him at least 3 times over the period of time that I was there in 93. Here's a guy who, left a huge group, and ever since he left Journey, people have just, wondered why doesn't he go back and sing with Journey again? Would love to see him back. And of course he gets that and has gotten that ever since he left Journey. Mm-hmm. And it may never happen. He says that it could happen, but it may never happen. I know he's been invited back. I don't know if he could come back. It's like there's a lot of ifs. Whether it happens or not, he's a super nice guy, and we all remember him from those days that he was putting out a lot of hits. So I would say he was probably number one on my list of guys that I've met over the years.
And he also had a very successful solo career as well. Sherry, Our Love Holds On is probably his biggest solo hit. I'm sure that when he was with Journey, he still sang that song as well in concert with them. But so he came to the Arrow a couple times, he said?
Yeah, at least 3 times that I remember. Once at the old location on Sunset Boulevard, and a couple times when we went over to the same building as K-Rock and K-Earth on Venice Boulevard. And I remember even people from K-Rock coming over to say hi to him because, of course, they all grew up with him. So, just a super nice guy. And I don't know how he deals with it on a daily basis, but I'm sure that he gets that question all the time. Why don't you go back and sing with Journey? Why don't you go back? So, and I don't know how he deals with it because I don't remember him answering that question in my presence. But I don't know if you could imagine going through your life being asked the same question every day of your life when you go out in public. When are you going to go back and sing with Journey again? So.
Oh, definitely. And then after, now you've got your successful voiceover career. Well, you've had it for many years, even before Mount Wilson and even before Oldies 93. You've been on commercials for Nissan, Diet Pepsi, National Car Rental, El Pollo Loco. I'm just probably scratching the surface here at jeffserr.com, JEFFSERR.com. Now, tell us about your current gig, K101 at live365.com.
There's a gentleman that I worked with back in the 70s by the name of Paul Peterson that decided he would put the old K101 format back on the air somehow, and so he started using the Live 365 format or network to do that. And over a period of maybe 5-6 months, he was able to attain the old jingles and to get permission from the former owner to use some of his old recordings. So his first plan was to make it sound exactly like K101 did back in the 70s, but realized the only way to really grab an audience, he would have to expand that and play the 80s and the 90s and even the up until a period of the 2000s. And so that's the way it is now. So I do voice tracks for that. And I'm introducing songs, and I'm doing bits, and we're not talking very much, maybe 3 times an hour. But the idea is that he wanted to put together a station where it was the old disc jockeys from the past playing current music on K101, and so he's got at least 3, maybe 4 people from the old K101 days doing voice tracks for his new station.
How many songs do you think are on the playlist currently? Because I remember you talking about using music from the 70s, but also the 80s, 90s, and 2000s.
How many songs? I don't really know. It's hundreds. I really don't know how he programs it because we haven't talked about how he actually but I would say he may have 500, 600, 700 songs on the format because he's playing all those decades. So, and I would hear songs that weren't on the radio that long ago, and so that's where I get a kind of a kick out of it. Is I'm introducing artists that I never played on the radio live, and it sounds great. I mean, he goes back to the 70s and then plays something from 2005, 2009, whatever it would be, and so he might have several hundred songs on that format. It sounds great.
That's great. Well, congratulations on that. And what was the best piece of advice you've ever been given in your career, by the way?
Should have warned me about that question.
Sorry about that.
I can't think of a damn thing. No, actually, the best piece of advice that I got came early in my career when I was still in Northern California at a little, dinky AM station, and that was listen to the radio and absorb as much as you can from what you're hearing, and don't just listen to top 40. Don't just listen to a particular format. Go up and down the dial and listen to all these different people and absorb as much as you can. And back then, a lot of the great DJs were on AM radio, so you can hear a lot of different signals. I can hear LA, I can hear San Francisco, I can hear even Portland radio stations occasionally, and so that's what I did. That was the best advice I ever got, was to just listen as much radio as I can and absorb as much as I can, and I did that and still do that to this day. I listen to a lot of different stations.
That's great.
Well, including satellite radio. So.
Oh, you do have satellite radio in your car?
Yeah, I have satellite radio, yeah.
How many channels is it up to now? Like 300 or so?
Well, I don't know if I'm paying for the first tier, so I don't know if I have that many formats to listen to. I don't hear everything that they offer.
Oh, okay. I didn't know they had different tiers.
They have different tiers. So if you pay the next step, you get to hear Howard Stern or whatever. So I'm paying the first tier, and that's enough because it's not like I'm doing a lot of long car drives where I need to listen to a lot of different stations, a lot of different channels.
Oh, definitely. Well, Jeff, I appreciate you coming on to talk with us here on the Talking Archive. And by the way, any family members also go into radio as well? No,
not at all. Not at all. They may have learned that it's not the best thing to do, Definitely, radio is not like it used to be. So, getting a job in radio is a tougher thing these days, because I worked my way up from small market radio, and I don't know how people do it unless they just go into the internship program at a station in a large town and go from there. It's definitely a whole different ball game.
This is the Talking Archive. My name is Josh Jacobs, and we've been talking with Jeff Serr, radio personality as well as voiceover talent. And next time we're going to be talking more about Machine Gun Kelly. I got to intern with him mainly when I was there, and Jeff has some wonderful stories about MG. I'll also be sharing some wonderful stories about the Gunner, as he was also known as. And hopefully soon we'll also be talking to MG himself. I'm looking forward to that. And until next time, keep your mind on the things above, and as you hit that open road, don't be a slow down spectator.